Hello, and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast talking about Dungeons & Dragons, well, not anymore, and how we might include it and improve it for our role-playing campaigns. With me back again in the Zoom room is the wonderful Matt Risby of The Bad Spot. Hello, Matt. How are you doing?
Hello, Fiona, and you know exactly how I am because we've seen each other. This is the third time we've seen each other in as many days, and the third of 5 such occasions we're going to have this week.
Oh, don't sound too downhearted. It's always a pleasure to see me.
I mean, it is, but yes, we are currently deep in the minds of working on a project together,
yes.
And we are really going for a sprint finish, you could say.
It's definitely long Night of the Soul era, I think, and we're all having fun, like yep. Pained faces and like thumbs up. But yeah, it is a bit like, okay, double session, sure. So yeah, but it's been obviously we've been working together for a lot over the last year since
we have. Yeah,
I can't remember the last time you were on here, but I think it's been a little while since we last spoke.
Yeah.
So we talked about The Between last time, and so we've just been talking about games and playing different games and stuff. So yeah, well, any exciting things you can tell about your RPG experience over the last year or so since you last came on here that you can talk about, obviously.
So was The Between the last time I was on?
I feel so, because I think it was before we recorded, or maybe just after we did The Between for Bad Spot.
Yeah,
I think.
Maybe. So I think since
roughly
then,
a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been very busy for me in the world of actual play. I went from kind of like intermittently posting solo games and the odd kind of vague video about whatever to posting kind of sponsored full table actual plays, of which Fiona was the incredible driving force behind, the producer behind the scenes, keeping it all together when we're all falling apart. So definitely,
yeah, we did with glue and sticky like everyone's
really is bits of string and pots and pans, everything thrown in. Yeah, so we did one for The Between, which was really great, and then we just kind of were gearing up to do a second season of The Between, and then Jason Cordova, who wrote the game, slid into my DMs and just said, hey, I think public access might be going on Quinn's Quest, and it would be great to like do an AP of it. So we basically all panic stationed and got a table together, recorded the entire run in 10 weeks, and then the review on Quinn's Quest didn't come out for another like 4 months.
4 months or something ridiculous. Yeah, we were there every week messaging, is this the week?
Is it the week? Is it the week? And then whilst we were waiting for that to happen, Jason wrote an entire other game called The Lands Remaining, and then we are now coming to the end of a 15-session actual play of that. And in between all that, I've been trying to keep doing solo videos, still kind of sailing the Sunderdials, doing RPG reviews that either everyone watches or no one watches, which is a baffling thanks YouTube. But yeah, it's been the busiest time I've kind of had in terms of like output on the channel, and because, as we've talked before, like I'm very protective of my time and doing too much. Yes. Like I've basically not really been doing a lot of home games in the last 3 months anyway, just because the production schedule of this has been quite condensed. But I mean, at the end of it, we'll have 3 absolutely stellar actual plays that are great examples of the game, great like tools for teaching players how to play the game, and also really great stories, which I'm really proud of. So it's been a busy time, Fiona.
It's been busy, but also, like as you said, like 3 incredible actual play series, all done by the game designer running it. And getting that, again, we've got stellar cast for it as well, and just getting everything out. It's really cool to see that, and like you said, learning from the game designer, and then being like, you've now played in 3 games run by Jason. Each one of them been very different. It's quite a privilege, really. And I think people don't realize that, because game designers, they're not really, and I say this very lovingly, obviously with Jason in mind, they're not celebrities. They're just normal people in houses who were like, I've got a game I want to run. Where are players? Well, and I find that really interesting, because obviously the way we see tabletop, obviously we're like, sometimes there's a celebrity status to players playing it. Certainly D&D does that. So I always find it really interesting that we just offhandedly say like, oh yeah, well, you're talking to Jason tomorrow and I'm doing this with this person, and it's just like everyone's just a normal person who likes telling stories, like.
And it's a small scene, it's like there's not that many people actually working at the coalface, so it doesn't take too long to actually start interacting with people who might appear to be higher up the chain. But I think that, like, from an actual play perspective, Jason and the Gauntlet in general have always been very big on having examples of play that are accessible.
Yes.
So, even before we started working together, he's got hundreds of hours of him running his games on his YouTube because, in a landscape dominated by the trad style of play and the trad style of GMing, when people see something that's not the norm, such as the Carl from Brindlewood engine, they kind of, they're not really sure of how to do it. And the game we're going to talk about today is another perfect example.
Yes.
And a game that is quite underrepresented in actual play, I think.
I agree.
In terms of big, spangly, there's a lot of it out there, but in terms of there being a flagship actual play of this game, or the games related to this game, we're really talking around what this game is. What's the game, Fiona?
So the game we're looking at today is Blades 68, which is a Blades in the Dark expansion that has come out. We've known about it for about a year or so because we did a playtest that you ran. Again, it was definitely, I think, maybe even before we started the Between. I can't remember. It's one of those weird times. Yeah. And what I think is cool, because that's what I was going to bring it onto, is that Evil Hat, which is the publishing company behind it, they've always been super supportive in their Forged in the Dark sort of system, promoting stuff. But I do agree, there's not a show that I can think of. Yeah, that's the Blades in the Dark official show, because they don't do that sort of thing, which is totally fine. But you've played Slug Blaster, for example. There's so many different Forged in the Dark varieties out there, but I feel like there's not many people who go back and look at Blades in the Dark specifically, because I think the original Blades in the Dark, as much as I love it and I love the setting and lore, it is a dense book. You give that to your players, they're just
it's a dense book, and I think even by everyone who worked on its admission, it's not laid out in the most accessible way, and it's also quite old in relative terms. So if they did it again, I am sure they would have applied some lessons they've learned. There's also the fact that they did deep cuts, which is that kind of supplement which streamlines a lot of things or gives you options to do things differently. But I think you're right. I think about actual plays, and in terms of I think if you look up the most viewed actual plays, it's probably still the Glass Cannon Network who did the Haunted City actual play, which I think was during COVID.
Yes,
and that's an exceptional actual play, but it's pretty old. It's only 3 players, I think. They don't get an awful lot into some of the mechanics, the crew stuff, I think, is secondary to a lot of the scores.
Yes.
I mean, it's still a great actual play. I'd highly recommend. And then, there's not, I mean, you did a really good one.
Thank you. I'll pay you afterwards. Yes.
Yeah. You did a really good one. I mean, the title for that was incredible.
I can't think who came up with that title.
But Michelle GM'd one, didn't she? The Ballad of the Silver Spectres.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're not talking about the volume of APs that is reflective of what I think is the second or third most popular role-playing system. If you think obviously the Dragon games at the top, then you've got probably Call of Cthulhu and Blades underneath,
powered by the Apocalypse systems, that sort of thing. I think, but I wonder the reason why this is the case is because Blades in the Dark and all the sort of Forged in the Dark systems is just as if you are playing a video game, because you have all this the downtime and the maintenance stuff, which is supposed to bring you as the player into the world and realize actions have consequences. But then as an actual play, that's really boring to watch. I think I talked to you. I was saying to my players when we ran Blades in the Dark for RPGs, I was it's so important to have downtime because it helps me build the next mission. But they didn't see it as, they're well, what's the story in it? What's the point in it? And I'm people aren't necessarily as interested in it if you're watching from the outside. If you're in it, I think it's a little bit different because you're very invested in it. And I was really struggling to get them to care about stuff. And I think with the mixture of because Deep Cuts came out just before we started playing, and I was thinking, thank goodness, because that just streamlined all of the downtime. The diceless
stuff. Downtime is a godsend, isn't it?
Because I think they were all worried about what it's more mechanics, and I was we'll just do it like this. But in my head I was Deep Cuts must go with the Blades of the Dark first edition. But even then, when they crowdfunded that edition of the Deep Cuts, they're we're just going to have some extra stuff for that, but we're not going to revitalize edition 1 of Blades in the Dark, which I'm that is a shame, because I think I think you need both of them really, because not only does Deep Cuts sort of streamline everything. There's got extra factions in it, which are mentioned briefly in the first one, and I'm like, if you're like, that sounds really interesting. Oh, it's in the other book. So
Yeah.
I do think at some point they're going to just do a big compendium of this, and maybe these expansions going forward.
I wonder if putting Blades deep cuts out was as a kind of cheaper supplement,
Probably
was sort of like a kind of toe in the water test to see, you know, do people actually like this stuff? Because the thing is that like you don't see that many games that have such a big gap between editions that Blades has. I mean, did Blades come out in like 2013 or 2014 or something like that?
It's been over a decade, I think, since.
So it's been a while. I mean, we had like what 3 editions of D&D since then. We've maybe had 40 editions of Call of Cthulhu. And the thing is, there's been so many advancements in the world of like Forged in the Dark games that I think there's probably an awful lot to learn. Like you were talking about downtime being boring, and it definitely can be, I think. But like I think about how that's handled in Slug Blaster.
I was going to say, yeah.
You know, you push through the excitement of the score, and that's a completely madcap, breakneck roller coaster, white knuckle ride where, you know, nothing matters and you can do anything you want, then have to come back and do your homework and be told your parents are disappointed in you and be absolutely crushed by that. But that's where you tell your story, you know? And I think that when you do things like add diceless downtime into Blades, you get a lot more opportunity to have, because it says at the start of every, and it says here in Blade 68, which is a game we will talk about.
Yes, we will talk. You have to set the scene, though. Yes, absolutely.
It does say, like, you know, downtime is a free-form role-playing part of it, but I think a lot of people treat it as an upkeep phase, which I think is really like missing the point, and they look at all the things they have to do, the numbers they have to see go down, and they don't think about the story implications of that. I think if I was running it, then that would probably be where like I would put a lot of my creative energy, I think, thinking about how downtime works, because that's where you get a lot of storytelling done. Yeah,
definitely some of the downtime, certainly in Blades, and I think in this 68 as well. It's like, okay, you've got the payout, amazing. However, you have to pay the ward boss, you have to do this, and like, but our money, this doesn't happen in like the films. You're like, yeah, unfortunately, this is kind of like your lives now. So I think it's that sort of thing where you have to portion out. It's like, you don't have to pay them. I just tick a little clock and then that goes up, and they're like, I guess, you know, and it's just.
In fact, I don't think you should pay them.
Yeah.
I think that would be better for me if you didn't. We played a playtest. So the playtest went live in 2025, I think, in about February, I think.
Something like that,
I had got a crew together, which you were part, to actually play a campaign of Teeth. Yes. And when we were gearing up to actually put a couple of dates in, and then we saw the Blade 68 playtest drop, I was like, this is really cool. I was like, I want to play this instead. And you all said yes. And we did, I think, 4 sessions, maybe 3 or 4 sessions.
I think we did 3. I think
3, yeah.
I think we planned for 4, and I think something came up on the last one.
Oh, we had tech problems, didn't we, on one of them, and like no one could hear each other.
Yeah.
But I think we did 2 scores, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
And this was my first time actually running Blades anything, which is weird now to think that like since then I've run so much Forged in the Dark.
Yeah.
That I feel like I could do it with my eyes closed now if I went back to it. And not only that, like I feel like it's like my system that perfectly suits my devil may care approach to GMing.
Yeah, story, what story? Let's go.
I'm just like, let's just do it. And I think I would play it so differently now. I think I got hung up on an awful lot when we actually played it. But what did you think to the playtest when we actually? It was fun, wasn't it?
I loved it. Like I think because I have always enjoyed the times I've played Blades in the Dark, which again once a long time ago. Then I ran it, and then a friend of the show, Ty, who does Side Character Quest, which is his own Forged in the Dark system. We did a one-on-one sort of game, and it was just only tweaked barely. And I love that because again, for me, all it is like I just do a thing. Consequences be damned. And usually it's that yes and principle of like, well, I'm going to do this. No one else is going to stop me. I'm not going to worry about like, you know, if I overthink it, then it's too late. You know, like I'm questioning myself because I think at the core of it for Blades, the original Blades, you are a scoundrel. you're confident. You are that Peaky Blinder. No one crosses you. You're that confident in it. But things go wrong, and you're not. It's that realist versus idealistic stuff. It's a place like, oh no, I fucked up. But like, that's not what your character's saying, right? And the same thing with 68 is that we're just transported like 100 years or so into the future of like going from that grim Victoriana Gothic sort of thing to these swinging 60s vibes of, in my head, very colourful, very bright, new things, clunky as well. The architecture is clunky and the technology is like still there. But it's interesting because I am not a fan of any of the inspiration and touchstones.
The touchstones, yeah.
So like, like any of the James Bond stuff or any of the sort of like Ocean's 11 and Italian Job, all that sort of thing. Not for me at all. Like in terms of that. So I was like, I don't know what really drove me to this, but I think for me, because I really like the idea of like you start off in Blades, the original, and then it's like, but what happens in 100 years' time? And I'm like, oh, I'd love to see what the change is. And of course, in the expansion, it talks about like ways that you could like go back and forth between these two periods and what has changed within 100 years, which is a lot. Another 2 world wars and separatist movements, and then the invention of blue time and all this sort of thing. So instantly I'm like, oh, these are the things that I find interesting. But then you layer on that swinging 60s, 70s vibe. I'm like, I can figure that out. I know what the tropes are. So so when you asked me to do the playtest, I was like, I'm sure I'll find something. And as you know, I did.
We know what you found. So I'll say whilst we're talking about touchstones, it lists a whole bunch of touchstones in the book, as is like du jour in role-playing games now. And the playtest did not mention Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, but the actual book does, because I think, and credit to Tim Denny who wrote this game, there's a playbook called The Swinger. It's the 60s, and it leans very heavily into like that. And like, I remember when, the Daniel Craig Bonds happened. I remember reading an interview with Daniel Craig, and he was like, fucking Austin Powers, man. Because of that, we can't do we have to be so serious. We can't do like gadgets or like quips because Austin Powers has basically done it, and like that's you can't. Funny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but in the book, it lists Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, as the forbidden touchstone.
Yes.
And I think that's really fun, because the thing is, like, and there's something I want to point out about the playtest. It does a really good job of this game. I don't want to point this out about the actual final game, not just the playtest. Sorry.
Sure.
The book does a really good game of saying this is what Blade 68 is. Blades in the Dark was set in Doskvol, and it was grim and it was gross. There was these electric fields keeping out ghosts. There's people, harvesting blood out of whales. A tale as old as time. And then it talks about the changes of what's happened. Like now we're not in eternal darkness. We have this blue, the blue, what's it called? The blue?
I think it's blue array, but it's blue time is what happens. Yeah.
So they have daylight, but it's artificial because the sun has died.
Yeah.
And the intro to the game does a really great job of like listing all those changes, what's happened in the world and how the world has developed. But then it also says, if you want to make this funner, or funnier, or goofier, or more yucks, here's some ideas.
Yes.
Maybe, it's always daylight, and it's always like, parties and swinging activities, and like ghosts when they turn up are like campy nonsense rather than like terrifying. Or if you want to make this game darker, maybe blue time is intermittent. It goes, on and off without warning, and, ghosts are terrifying when you see them. And I love that. I like it when a game is specific, right?
Yeah.
That is spoken from a true, like, Carl from Brindlewood head, where, like, those are games. They're not systems, they're games. This is a game about these people in this situation, and everything is specific to that. If you start changing stuff in it, you will very soon find yourself having written a different game.
Yes.
But also when it's stuff like Blades, where people know what Doskvol is, and they know what the original setting was, and you're going to shift it forward in time. I love when you're playing in a setting that's really like, it's ubiquitous. People know what that setting is. I really like it when the designers give the players latitude to say, well, hey, okay, you're in Doskvol. These things are true, but if you want to dial it up this way or you want to dial it down this way, that's really good. And I think that's a really great way of onboarding players into this who might think this is like a campy kind of like 60s goof. Because that was when I heard about Blade 68, I think it was called Blades in 68 when it was first mentioned.
Yeah.
And some of the original playtest docs still have the old title on there and the old logo. I remember thinking, I just hope they don't be like, it's Doskvol, but it's swinging. But the thing is, they actually move the world on significantly, and they write all that backstory in and that history in. But then also, like, you know, the factions have moved on or changed or shifted. There's references to, you know, certain things that were around in the original Doskvol. It feels like a progression of the story rather than, you know, like a gimmicky side episode where like everyone's, you know, having a Gidget style beach party.
That's the thing I really love, because I realized myself that I love lots of different factions. I really like that because that gives me stuff to pull on, but the credit I always think of, like with the original Blades and with Blades 68 actually, is that it gives you enough to be like, here it is, but it doesn't like list out histories of who did what and like here's their main, like it's got an idea. Certainly with the Blade 68, the document that we've got, it's like, here's a faction, here's what their kind of vibe is and the flag or their logo, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And obviously I assume all the art is going to be amazing. Like we don't have there's a lot of it placeholder just now, but like the stuff with the factions, instantly I'm like, oh yeah, so that's what their sign would be. And it really, I don't know, there's just been a lot of care in the layout, I feel, for this book currently, and it just made me realize that, oh yeah, these are, as you said, here's what the world is like. But you could be like, I really want to know more about these reality wardens, which is like, they've moved on from, I think it was the Bellwether, like wardens who would find the ghosts originally and get the bodies and stuff. It's like, how does that change? And it's like, you know, we've lost those Leviathans, but we need to power the blue time stuff with this infusion. I know, we'll remove the bodies and do with them something probably not great. But I like it. It just leaves it sort of mysterious, like, what is this prompt? And it's all done very efficiently. And again, credits to Tim on the writing on this. And obviously loads of people are going to contribute to the actual book in the end. I just feel like there's just enough to entice you, but it's so efficient and you're like, oh, where else can I go with this? And it leads, and because it plays into that style of like, what do the players want to do? What interests them? Let's explore that together. And then it's canon for your things, because everyone's coming from the same starting point, but they could end up completely differently, you know?
I think this is, and again, this is coming from a car from Brindlewood Head. Like, this is just modern game philosophy, right? Like, I look at books that are written in a more traditional way, and you look at like mystery design adventure design or module design or whatever. Yes, there are some people who want 50 pages of history and stat blocks and detail about NPCs and everything. But also, I think that, you know, in a more collaborative environment, which is what these games tend to promote. I mean, Blades was, you know, it's a game where you debate the stakes of your actions with the players. You know, you ask people what is at stake here, not just like, I want to do this, roll this dice, this to check you did it or you didn't. Like, everything it comes from the players in this collaboration. And in the spirit of that, you don't really need that much detail in things. You need a punchy, flavorful description of something that's a hook to get people into. And then it's up to you at the table to bring that to life. I know a lot of people who, you know, aren't so comfortable playing these kind of games. That sounds fucking terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And I think there was probably a time in my gaming history where I was like, I need more than that. I need to write a lot more about that. But that's not how Blades in the Dark works. You need to kind of let go a little bit. You need to kind of take that leap of faith. I did say in a podcast once I did that what do running Blades in the Dark is like walking a high wire without the high wire. You basically just have to step off and hope that you get to the other side.
There's some invisible floor. So you make it to the end. Yes.
And it's terrifying the first couple of times you do it, but when you get a handle on it, I think it's exhilarating. What I will say, I mean, you mentioned it briefly just then, that like the vibe of this game, like, you know, anyone who's familiar with Tim Denny's work, like Deathmatch Island, you read that book, that is an artifact. Like every page drips with, you know, detail and meta text, and Blade 68 is no different. The style that's going, and the art style, we've seen some of the art, and in the document that we have, which is like the kind of artless preview edition, the text is set, I think, isn't it? But I think so, pretty much. The art is kind of placeholder. We still have the playbook art, which is like for each one, and they are absolutely magnificent. You only really need to see those to be sold on the game. Absolutely beautiful bits of work. that like sell the 60s vibe, but not like, hey, it's the 60s in our world. It's the 60s of this world.
Yes.
And yeah, I think it's an absolutely beautiful artifact. And if you look at what they're doing with the crowdfunder, with the Rolodex of factions and stuff, and the faction cards and the map. So maps are huge in Blades.
I am a sucker for a good map. I'll be honest.
I bought the original map pack for original Doskvol, so I have I got it printed out of my work, a giant like A1 size poster. I've never run Blades, and if I do in person, it's going to be like everyone around the table with candles with a map, which is very cool. But yeah, this game, not only does it like the design and everything, and like the rules kind of shift a little along from the original Blades. One thing that I'm really surprised about, and I kind of wanted to pick your brains about this as well.
Yeah, go for it,
and I don't know whether this is controversial, which is like, there's no rules in this game.
No,
like the game insists that you have a copy of Blades in the Dark and possibly deep cuts. Now that's not that much of an issue, is it? Because Blades has appeared in so many of those the big bundles that I mean, I've got it twice by accident,
I'm sure,
as well as like
and a physical copy somewhere.
Physical copy, yeah. But like, I don't know whether they missed a trick by not actually writing this as a standalone game. What do you think?
Because I remember when I got deep cuts. Because I again, giving it to my players, I said, look, here's my primer. If you want to read the books, feel free. But I appreciate, the original Blades is like 300 plus pages, which is stuff that you don't need. But you'll need these chapters, and then deep cuts is this. And I remember one of the players was like, I didn't understand anything until they tried to read deep cuts first. And they had no idea what was going on. And then, of course, they read the original. I was like, this makes sense. I believe with Blade 68, there's going to be like rule reference sheets. But I agree. I was looking through because I was checking stuff about like the differences, the overview. And they were like, you can just replace any of these rules in the original. And I'm there going like, but what is the main game mechanic? Because I assume it is the same as always, where it's a dice pool of D6s. Higher numbers are better. All it needed was like a page or two to be like, this is the main game mechanic, but there's nothing about it. And I'm like, I think people coming to this, because people will be excited for this setting. I think if you love all those touchstones, the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or the, Austin Powers-esque, type thing. GTA London was another one I saw. You come to this and go, but what are the rules? So I was a bit like, ooh. And again, this book's going to expand anyway because of all the stretch goals. So I think they can spend at least a 2-page spread on like, here's the mechanic,
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because like they can put that in, but then like, where do you stop putting stuff in? Because there's an awful lot that you will find yourself needing.
They always put in stuff about prison. That prison chapter's always there. And I'm like, why do I need that now? Put it at the back. Why is it in the middle of the book? I don't understand.
I think that maybe there should be like a prison expansion. I remember reading that when I read Blades in the Dark, Blades 68 for the first time, and Blades, because obviously you can get banged up in original Blades. Yes. But I read that and I was just like, who's going to want to do that? And having now since played like a full campaign of public access where I spent some of the campaign banished to a desert and everyone else forgot about me, I'm like, I really want to go to prison in this game. I think it'll be so much fun. But yeah, I agree. I think I don't know whether that this was an opportunity to be Blades 2.0. Like, I don't know whether because the thing is, right, I got a suspicion that this game is going to appear on a popular review show at some point very soon.
Oh, I wonder.
And when it does, like a lot of people, because, when things appear on that popular review show, a lot of people go and want to buy the game.
Yes.
People are going to buy it because it will be out by then. I think it comes out in August, this game.
Yeah, it's already written. It just needs art. Yeah.
Evil Hat are really good with their crowdfunding. They're like, they don't crowdfund a game that's 50% there. They crowdfund a game that's 95% there.
Yeah.
So they can hit retail really quickly. You're not waiting 2 or 3 years for it to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get struck by those delays, even though they do have the same issues as everyone with like printing and tariffs and all that kind of nonsense.
Sending stuff. Yeah.
So this game will be out in August. So let's just say that you do stumble across a famous review show talking about this game. You're like, I want to pick this up immediately. Okay, you go on Evil Hat Store and you pick up the PDF and like, can I play the game? No, I can't play the game because this is an expansion to another game that also uses, possibly, if you want to, the rules from this expansion, which you also haven't got. So I know that Evil Hat did a thing where I think they did it when this crowdfunder launched. They did like a bundle where you could get the games really cheap, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's still the same of like, hey, do you want to play Blade 68? Who owns it? Well, I can, but I've also got to buy these 2 other games first.
Yeah.
They're not being dishonest about it. They're not. No. They have said it from the off. This is an expansion. And they, very upfront about the fact that you need another copy of Blades.
Yeah.
I just don't know how good an idea that is.
No, I agree. They've got the basic system, like the reference system document is available online, so you can go do that. But again, it's that sort of thing of like all this information is in separate places. Yeah. Whether you buy it or it's for free, or like you said, by this point we've got so many copies of it. But yeah, I agree. I just think it'd just be nice to have more, like keep it in one, because then people aren't struggling, like they're not that barrier to like get started, because by the time you get there and you've done your character creation and your crew creation, which we've done before, and I think we're pretty slick at it, but if you're brand new to it, you're like, oh my god, there's so many choices, or so many, I don't know what I'm going to do, and it, like I said, that possible admin overwhelm is like, you just need to limit everything down to its basics. One of the things I do like, though, that Blades 68 does is these cold opens. Because you ran a cold open for us where we were just bang in the middle of a heist. No idea how we got there. Great.
Well,
really
literally
cool.
This one. So a cold open from film and TV is when, it just starts, right? In media res, I believe, is the Latin phrase for it. And, a lot of games, if you read them, even trad games will say, oh, don't just begin in a fucking tavern. Start in media res. My favorite in media res I ever did was my live show for Sundered Isles was we started when the main characters were stood in front of a firing squad. That's an in media res start.
Very cool.
Do we know how they get there? It doesn't matter. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
That's a dramatic way of starting it, right? And this takes it to, kind of, they codify this by giving you a whole bunch of like cold opens to start with. We've played one called the Illuvium Affair, which is fantastic because the Illuvium Affair, you start the heist whilst you're in the getaway, right? We join the action in the getaway of a heist, and there's this substance called illuvium, which is prevalent in Blade 68, and it has kind of reality warping effects, and one of them is the crew can't remember what they've stolen, who they've stolen it for, or who they're running from. Yeah. So we just had fun with that, didn't we? When we started that heist with like, okay, who's holding this? Is the car they're in? Does it exist? Is it phasing out of reality? Who are these guys? It felt a little bit like the scene of Memento where, he comes in, he's like, okay, I'm chasing this guy. Oh no, he's chasing me.
Chasing me. Yes, exactly that. Yeah. Well, there's like a scene that from Moon Knight where he wakes up and they're like, get up, Mark. They must get the scarab. And you're like, what? He's like, there's a truck. Whoa, there's the person that's dead. Like, again, not saying it has to be comedic, but let's face it, as soon as you land that, it's going to be hangover levels of comedic. Yeah, they've got 3 other ones, like the 1,000 feet above Doskvol, which is like this huge sort of like a blimp that crashes to the ground. You got the frame up where a go-between goes wrong. Someone, that's it. They explode out the window. One of the PCs explodes out the window, and then you reverse back. And then Escaping the Mind's Eye, which is more about that residence field we were talking about. They think that people are stuck in there. I actually think, admittedly, obviously biased because we played it, the Illuvium Affair is that one that's like, here's the most grounded one that you can get into. Like, you've seen this in the movie, you've seen this where people are getting away in cars, and for us, we flip to each person. It's like, what do you do? But all of them quite good because it just gave like beats for each, if you're splitting the party, here's what they do, and like just things to go around and like go to each person. And yeah, I instantly love this idea. It made it feel so much easier than like, all right, we're starting a heist. What are we thinking? Like, you're just already in that motion and it's exciting.
Yeah. A lot of Forged in the Dark games have that initial obstacle of how do we start? Because the point of the games is you generate your own story. And there aren't many better engines for generation of story, conflict, tension, and also trouble. And it's actually called the trouble engine in this game. Like okay, you do a thing. This makes a number go down with these people. And it's not just a mechanical thing, like, there's a story consequence as well. Oh, that's good GM fodder. I need to think about what's going on there. Well, you mean you've made the number go up with these other people, and these all things happen. You do things, you accrue stress for doing so. You have to pay off stress, but if you do it too hard, then all of these things. It's the tick and tock of Blades in the Dark, and that's amazing. But the thing is there's always that starting problem of like, how do we begin? Because you can't get a group together, do a session 0, meet your characters and say, okay, do a heist, because they don't know who anyone is. They're supposed to be a new crew that are like fresh on the scene. So these cold opens are really good. I mean, there's one in Blades. Is it called like the Showdown in Crowfoot or something? Or
that one's more traditional of like someone comes to you and is like, oh, someone's going on our patch. I want you to go sort it or go steal something from them. That's not really, I feel that's like almost planning meeting. Like client comes to you, like I'm telling you, go do this, and whose side are you on? Rather than like you've got the thing and people are like, hey, that's our thing. That's the thing I'd say, because that's the one I used for our Blades in the Dark game. But interestingly, because you mentioned the Trouble engine, I think what Blades 68 does really well, that I think I definitely implement if I was going to do any Blades system again for content, is break up. Like, it's in my head what we did. We had like opening scene, then here's the heist. That's what we're going to do. Let's do the planning. Then we do the heist, and then downtime. Here, because you're starting in media res, we've sort of cut that cycle in half. So you're like, you've done the heist, then you do your downtime, and then you're planning the next one, and then you stop. So you're not, and it just breaks up, because then it gives more time for the GM to be like, cool, I can now go away and like plan some stuff for the heist. Obviously, there's different ways you can run it, but I was like, that feels much more sense that you're starting in the action every single session. You're doing the heist there rather than like, how do we plan this? Like you're sort of planning it towards the end of the last session, or that's a way to structure to do it. Yeah,
it gives you the option. I think. I think it says like, if you are a GM who would rather have a little more time, and I totally understand that, because sometimes when you're like, okay, well, we want to do something with this, and it's like literally 10 minutes. I mean, now I think I'm a bit more experienced at running story games or games where there are no handrails.
I think you would take a quick 5-minute break and then you'd come back and be all right. You wouldn't need a week between games, perhaps.
Exactly, yeah. So, and I really like that option that like, and I had this with Slugblaster as well. The way I wanted to run Slugblaster was I wanted to make sure we did a run and we did downtime every week.
Yes.
But when we were playing it, I would be feeling out the vibe at the table thinking, okay, well, I think maybe there's more to dig into in downtime here. So let's wrap this the run up quicker so we can spend a bit more downtime. Or it became obvious between sessions, we've got a lot to do in a score next week. Let's push through that, and then maybe downtime can be a little truncated, or a little more abstract perhaps. But I think it's really interesting that like when we played the playtest, we did the Illuvium affair to kick off, but the next score we did, there wasn't really much talking about it because it was really obvious what the score was, because from memory, we're stealing some political street art.
It was not a wall,
It was a wall, and so stealing the street art. That was the complication being that it was street art that was graffitied onto the wall, and I think that's when I started to click with the system really, because I think you guys fucked the roll, or it wasn't a great roll.
It was pretty bad,
and it was like, okay, you got to steal this bit of wall. So I was just like, it's on the side of a mob casino. And it's just like, that was amazing. There was street magic. There was a robot putting a bomb in his tummy. There was an awful lot of fun stuff going on in that.
Yeah.
But like, what I'm saying is that like, I don't think in the playtest, because it was quite short, we didn't really get into planning heists and thinking more about like, well, who wants to do this week? Who have we pissed off? Who do we need to appease? Whose nose do we want to put Pav joint? It was more like, we've done the starter one, and actually it's really obvious that the next one is we steal this piece of art because we've established it somehow. I don't know how we did that, but
I think because this is the other cool thing I think Blazer does really well, is this planning meeting, so that everyone, what interests you as the players and also the GM, and you come up with like a client, I think an artifact and a location or something like that. You come up with one of these three things, and then you work together to do the pitching of the different heists, and then you roll through the payout, and like how long a job is it easy, and then you can decide between you folks which ones you would like to do for that one. Doesn't mean the other ones go away. They can happen there. But equally, what I was reading about is like, we have cohorts as well, like we did in the original place. So, you have like a team of like, I don't know, nerds or dogs, I don't know.
Or some thugs or something.
Thugs, and they can go and do another heist at the same time. Which I thought was great,
It feels a bit more structured and collaborative in Blade 68, where it's like, okay, we're not just sitting around saying, right, what we're gonna do, and someone's got to think of an idea. well, and in Blades, it's never really a problem because you've got enough trouble you're in, or you've got enough things you need. But like, there's a bit more like, okay, we just need each person to come up with one thing.
Yeah.
These are the things you've got to come up with, and then let's make one. And also, like, if you come up with something cool that isn't quite right that week, it goes in the score Rolodex for next time. And it could sit there for ages and be like, oh, hang on, well, we haven't really got anything to do this week. Hey, why don't we, steal that spaceship?
Here.
Like, let's and dig that old classic out.
Again, like you said, we're both done lots of Carth and Brindlewood Bay, which obviously encourages us to paint the scene, come up with like the unseen prompts and stuff like that. So I think it's very easy for us to like go, oh, I can come up with something for a heist easily. But yeah, I think it's nice here because then like the GM can also be like, I'm going to give some suggestions for stuff. But equally, it's rather than just listening in downtime, the players might be like, oh, what was that guy? I was an NPC from this place. I want to find out more about them. And so you pitch at the table and then together you make it. I always think that's just so cool because then you feel when you do your heist, it's like, oh, I never thought it was going to go that way. But what I'd say, just because we were talking about actual players, watching people trying to pitch you ideas might not be interesting to a wider audience, but because certain systems, say like the Carth and Brindlewood systems, that is part of the, in order to proceed and finish the mystery, you must do this. Whereas here, it's like, what is that mystery? It's like, you should know what there's. So I feel like, again, I mean, I would love to see more Blades in the Dark or a similar like actual plays, but I wonder if it's just not suited for that experience as for an audience watching.
What I'm saying is, someone needs to pay us to do it,
what?
and make. Come on, Fred, sort it out. Basically, because I will push back slightly on that. I think that it's just, I don't think anyone's done it quite right yet. Like they've not quite cracked how to make that engaging. And I think that with a lot of, I think you need a table that knows the system.
Yes.
I think you need a table that's, it's a hard game to be a passenger in, I think.
You have to be on it, yeah.
And I think that you can be a passenger in a score.
Yes.
And you can improvise, pull, plot twists out your ass and have, a great time on a score. But like, I think for the downtime and the heist, but then is that part of like the heist genre? There's always like one of the crews like, they're good on the job, but they're not the brains behind the operation. You know what I mean? I just wonder whether like we haven't quite seen that.
Maybe
that flagship actual play where they've cracked it. Maybe this is the year.
Yeah.
Evil Hat.
Because, yes, we're looking at you, Evil Hat. The other thing I wanted to mention is the ticking time bombs, which kind of got introduced a little bit in Deep Cuts. It was like, here's an overarching event that you can have, which for them was like, strangers from another world. But here they have, I think it was 5, I want to say off the top of my head. 5, which all relate to the different themes it sort of comes up with. So there's like one which is like an experimental rocket project that goes wrong. The Hull Directive, we've not even talked really much about the hulls, but this horrific idea of like your soul being ripped away from you because you've been a bad un and you're put into a robot for reconditioning.
Prisoners put in robots.
The Model Worker Initiative, which is like everyone's happy and there's no rioting and everyone's just a very similar one to the Hull, I'd think, but it's just less of that, I guess. Minutes to Midnight, which is like political tensions between the palace and this place called Blackthorn Park, which is all spy stuff, and then the Invasion for Another World. Like, again, it depends on your table. I think just because I read it first in Deep Cuts, the idea of Invasion from Another World, and there's so many different versions of Doskvol, really appeals to me, even though like I feel sci-fi is so low when I think of this game. Like, there's just something about it where, the weird supernatural element could be explained by aliens or by visitors. And like one of the other things you can be, one of the playbooks, the advanced playbooks, is a time traveler, which I'm instantly like, that will be fun to do, and just try that out for a few sessions.
In terms of like sandbox type stuff, Blade 68 is about as good as it gets. Like towards the end of the book, there's like 50 pages of optional things to explore, like details on neighborhoods, and like it's not overwhelming walls of text. It's like, here's a neighborhood, here's a paragraph, there's a vampire that lives there. What? Hang on. Sorry.
He's still here? Yes.
Yeah, this guy's still here, hasn't moved out. Needs to gentrify the fuck out of this area. There's a lot of tables in this game to kind of roll on and stuff.
Assembly tables look so good, yeah.
One thing that I really loved, and when we did the playtest, we loved it loads. You put it in your actual play on RP Geeks.
Yes.
And when I did the feedback for the playtest, I was like, this is our favorite bit, which was the opening credits. Like when you start a session, you meet, whatever, you get your snacks, and then we say, right, this is what we're doing. Roll credits, and everyone gets like 2 or 3 sentences to do the bit in the credits of the TV show where
so good.
Their character's doing something. Wow, my character is being chased by the blue coats, and he like ducks down an alleyway, and then we see an explosion go, and then like it goes back to the GM, and the GM's like, oh, there's some people in like shiny chrome suits who are up in a tower somewhere. We don't know where that is. And they're looking. They see the smoke rising in the neighborhood. There's an uprising, and just like that. I had so much fun with that because everyone was super invested in in making their character look really cool.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna. Let's lay some seeds, and then we did post-credit scenes with like people from those opening credits, and it's just such a rich textural thing. I don't know who did it first, but it's in Brindlewood Bay that opening, but Brindlewood Bay is supposed to be a TV show, and that's the point of like that opening credits thing. But like, I loved how it worked here, and we had a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah, I'm actually for the next RP Geeks like Blade Runner, I'm doing the same thing because I think it just sets up that tone. It's like, here we are starting. It's like the opening ritual and die and all these sort of things. It's like, we are here. Where do we see your character? Okay, this is what's going on, and like it gives suggestions of what's happening. It could be a scene from a school that we've not seen yet, or ominous flashes to something else. And what I like is that it says after a couple of goes, it goes, does a player have a prompt? Well, what could be in the opening credits? And I'm just there going, oh, that's so, again, it's just encouraging the players to slowly like, and now you're part of the game.
It's all story, it's all character. It's like, okay, well, I've seen your character be introduced like in a fist fight in a bar. They get thrown through a window, there's a freeze frame and their character's name comes up on screen. Oh, then we cut to like, oh, the cops are shaking down some kids in a poor neighborhood. Oh, why are they doing that? Like, okay, now we've established that. So it's I just love it so much. I think it's so cool. And I remember doing the feedback form, we're like, your game's really good, but we really like the opening credits. It's just I really like it.
A really obvious thing, but we love it. Yeah, like I've played in some home games where they've gone, and here's the opening theme tune, and they play it, and again, it's that sort of thing where the opening credits and the theme tune. So that's what in my head is like, if you pick a song and you just play it in the background on repeat until we finish it. Yeah, no, I think like overall, like Blade 68 has everything I wanted it, even though immediately I'm like going, I don't know any of these films necessarily, but it's just, again, your table may vary on like the silliness to seriousness, but I think it has everything you need. You just have that initial hiccup of like, you kind of need to know the system a little bit, and because it doesn't have it in there, it's not as accessible. But and like you said, there's not an actual play out there currently that I think does it justice in the sense of like, here's a short 12 episodes, quick and like a little taster, rather than like you said, the glass cannon one, which it's great. It takes a little while to get going, I'd say, but like once they get it,
once they do, it's great. Once those guys get into how to do heists and how they, because the thing is, I think what's interesting about the glass cannon one is that I don't really think any of the players know the rules very well.
Oh no!
When they play it, and I still don't think at the end they know the rules very well, to be honest. No. But like once they get into heists, I think when they start doing flashbacks and they realize the power of those. There's like 2 heists in the middle of that first season. I'm like, when I listened to that, I watched that, I was just like, damn, that's the good shit right there.
Yeah. And the other thing, sorry, it's always like one more thing, like Columbo, but they change a little bit of like the personalities of like keys and deadlocks.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I think, again, it just encourages you to be these characters, because I think the problem with Blades initially was like, well, we're all scoundrels, we're all a bit grubby and like, whereas here in Blades, it was like, okay, well, you're not criminals necessarily, you're a heist team. Maybe you have someone who isn't a criminal that just happens to be the face and can do, all different shades of bad. But then these keys are like things that like a personality could do, and if you turn it a few times to get various successes or to avoid failures, you get deadlocked into it. And I think that's so cool, like the idea of just like getting locked into something.
That's a really big difference that I noticed between the playtest document and this, is that when it lists the keys, they give you a lot of examples. So in the playtest, there wasn't there was just like pick a key, come up with a trait for your character, and then the opposite is the deadlock.
Yes.
Whereas this one, it's like, hey, you want to be the hound? Here's a whole list of keys that you could do.
Yes.
If you can't think of one, we've got you covered. Don't worry about it. Take one of these. I really like. We didn't see them pop off too much, did we? Because we only played a few sessions, but I really like the idea of them.
I think it was a bit helpful. Them like, oh, you've been punched, and you would lean into them a little bit, and then I saw the potential for it, and certainly a longer campaign and the payoff for it, because otherwise it gets very dark with like, again, in the original Blaze it's like trauma and you're now into this, and you're like, but it's the swinging 60s, like everyone passes it off. Like you can still be flawed and like traumaful underneath, but I like the idea like, it's like you're super positive, and it's got to a point where it's very toxic, because that's the block. And I'm like, I'd love to play that rather than everything being negative, so
it's a bit like, we've seen from games we've been playing recently where like how much fun you can have with a really flavorful condition.
Yeah.
And I think that keys, did keys come from Apocalypse keys? I can't remember where they came from. They're definitely from another game.
I don't know.
That concept, I don't know where they came from, but like it's not quite as open as having narrative flavored conditions, and it's a lot more interesting than seeing number go down.
Yes.
And I just really like that system, and the problem is now, Fiona, now we've read this and talked about it, I want to run it.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited. I'm like, so when are we doing it?
When are we doing it? When are we making this?
You said you haven't been doing
play?
any home games, Matt. But to be fair, I know you were talking about like Deathmatch Isle as well, which is the other one that's illustrated, which I've not read yet properly. I looked a little bit of it.
It's so good.
I know. We don't have time, Matt. You and I are on different sides of an ocean, and we're all busy doing our own actual plays.
We need to move to Greenland and form
I'll see you there.
form a role-playing game utopia, only for it to be invaded and annexed.
Big sad. Oh no. Yeah. Well, before we get too sad, Matt, thank you so much for coming to talk to me about Blades 68. Where can we find you on the internet if you want to be found? Anything to plug and any recommendations for you before we head out?
Absolutely. You can find me on the internet at The Bad Spot, on YouTube mainly. All of my actual play stuff has been making it up to audio platforms as well. Public access is on its way up there now. I'll plug The Lands Remaining, which is a game that's not out yet, but we've almost completed a full campaign of it, and by the time the game comes out, that campaign will be live and available to people to see. And I mean, Fiona can attest to this as well. Like, that's been some of the most fun I've had at a game table. Some of it's been pretty wild and very unexpected. Yeah. In terms of like a recommendation, I just saw in the media recs for this a film I love, and I will heartily recommend. They list the Robert Altman film The Long Goodbye in there with Elliot Gould as Philip Marlowe. It's basically a kind of 70s retelling of that story, where Elliot Gould is a very slovenly, mumbling cop, or private eye, sorry, and the relationship with his cat is what I would recommend that film for. It's a wonderful film anyway, but like it's the exact kind of film that you would get if you asked Rob Altman to make a film noir in the 1970s. It's a really good film, and I'd highly recommend it.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I've not heard of that one, so I will absolutely check that out. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I'm sure we'll have you back on again to talk about more games of various stripes, depending.
It's always a pleasure, Fiona. That's why, it's nice to come on and chat.
Excellent. And thank you so much for listening to the DM's Book Club. We'll be back next week with another episode. But until then, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.